Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mildra, and I'll be your gaming monk for the evening. Cast your mind to about 2 years ago, when I tackled the crowdfunding campaign for what was known at the time as the MCDM RPG. I had maintained what I said in it, but since that stream was, again, 2 years ago, I think it was high time for a follow-up. In that time, there have been 2 playtest packets released to backers, which, in full disclosure, I am one of. The former presenting itself like a starter kit, and the latter being a raw text PDF. Albeit one with proper bookmarks, so nice on that. Obviously, going through all of it in a review manner would be a little excessive, which is why I'm doing this as an impressions video. When the game is fully released, I may consider doing a full review then. For me, it's the fact that the initial livestream I did was only covering the stuff on the backer kit page, and there's been a lot more details that have come around since. Now, for starters, most of what I covered about what the game is trying to be still holds true. I still like that it has a clear direction of what sort of fantasy it is and what style it's built for. Heroic fantasy with elements of tactical and cinematic play. This means there's no playing halfsies about what style it's going for, like a universalist game that isn't when it's convenient. I'll let you decide who that's referencing. I'll also briefly touch on the fact that the game actually has a setting instead of, once again, playing halfsies. In other words, claiming that they're setting agnostic, yet having a bunch of mechanics that clearly skew towards certain settings. Anyways, let's move on to the core mechanic. A lot of participants' actions are resolved through what's known as power rolls. This is a 2d10 roll with a certain ability modifier. The result is compared to the 3 tiers of success. Tier 1 is an 11 or less, Tier 2 is between 12 and 16, and Tier 3 is 17 or higher. This means the baseline probability is 55%, 35%, and 10% respectively. Now obviously this assumes a modifier of 0 with that calculation, and doesn't account for the fact that rolls of 19 or 20 are automatic Tier 3 results. While this may seem high, this means that higher tiers are rare, and feeds into a particular thing I noticed. I know some will look at this and compare it to Powered by the Apocalypse, with its whole failure, mixed success, and total success, but I look at this more as strengths, both of which I've covered on this channel. This is because you're not rolling for success per se, you're rolling for degree of success. Of course, rolls can still have a higher difficulty, at which point the lowest tier to succeed increases by 1. Beyond that, the primary modifier is edges and banes. These modifiers cap at 2, and if you have one of either, you add 2 to the roll. If you have 2 of either, i.e. 2 edges or 2 banes, they cancel each other out, you don't increase the roll, but instead the roll's tier goes up by 1 to a maximum of 3. Now, when it comes to characters, and this is where I'll be spending the most amount of time in this impressions, when you pick your ancestry, i.e. race, you gain 1 ancestry trait for free, and then gain 3 points to spend on a short list of ancestry traits. This means that it's possible to have 2 characters of the same race and have different kit from that race. Now the second step is culture and career, which fill the role of things like background or upbringing in other games. These will grant a starting set of skills, 1 from your culture and 2 of them from your career, as well as various other elements, such as perks, which are non-combat features, akin to feats, but again, non-combat, as well as other benefits, and a inciting incident table, essentially the thing that made you become an adventurer. As an aside, I appreciate that skills are a kind of on-off switch here, and are categorized instead of being one big list. Some cultures and careers do grant additional benefits, but those are on a case-by-case basis. Now, third of this is class. There's 9 classes so far, and the full level range isn't in these documents, so I won't get into the classes individually here. I will note that your choice of class determines starting ability modifiers. Additionally, each has 3 resources outside of stamina, which is Drawsteel's version of HP. Recoveries, which are the game's incarnation of healing surges, and recover HP equal to 1/3 your maximum stamina when used. Heroic resources, which have different names based on classes, and some of them are used like MP, and some of them are used like momentum. And surges, which are a kind of extra effort system. Now, surges and recoveries are standard across the board, but heroic resources are used differently between classes. I'll use 2 examples here. The Elementalist has a resource in the form of Essence, and you gain 2 Essence at the start of your turn, along with 1 more when you or an opponent within 10 squares of you takes elemental damage, with a couple exceptions. On the other hand, the Fury's resource is Rage, which you gain 1d3 points of each turn, along with 1 the first time you take damage each round. I should note that with a lot of these resources, after encounters they reset, so keep that in mind. It's a good way to prevent turtling. I know it would be tempting to consider the heroic resources to be MP and different coats of paint, but some classes do not use them in such a manner. In addition, each class has a specialization you'll pick from, akin to subclasses in other games, right out of the gate instead of at a certain threshold a few levels in. There's a lot more I'm skimming, but the point is that classes have a lot of width in this system. It's clear that customization is key throughout it, and I would go into equipment, but this game is not really concerned with equipment and more concerned with equipment packages that are broadly defined as kits. These can be reinterpreted as the table sees fit. So, for example, if you're doing Elementalist, you don't have to play it like a wizard using a staff and all that. If you want to do Elementalist and martial arts a la a bender, you can do that. Especially since each kit has its own signature abilities you can pick from. Now, lastly, I do want to talk a bit about downtime projects. This is handled via a point-based goal, where players can accumulate points through project roles during downtime, as well as through certain benefits, items, and so on. The project roll itself is a standard roll that adds the rolled amount of points, though things like skills and characteristics can modify this. If you roll a 19 or 20, it's considered a breakthrough and the roll explodes. Once the project has accumulated a certain number of points, the project is considered complete and you get whatever you were building towards that project. I remember a similar kind of thing being done in Godbound, but this is using a much higher point total. I like the skeleton of this, but I do feel options should be given to give suggestions for allowing projects to progress at different speeds. There's already a similar thing when it comes to different experience speeds when leveling up. Yes, there's the project points that certain careers grant, but I think we can do more than that, and I hope this is expanded on in the full book. There's a lot more I could get into, like encounter strength and the roles that are taken up by adversaries, as well as some of the hints of the world's setting. However, I want to save that kind of thing for later, as I may consider doing a Valley of the Judge series on this game come release. All in all, it's mostly what I expected, and I'm glad it is meeting those expectations, and clearly skews towards being a crunch-medium tactical affair with an emphasis on segmented customization, as opposed to freeform, and resource abstraction. To that end, I feel this is closer in design to games like Emberwind, 13th Age, Unity, and similar affairs, rather than the more litigious fantasy games. What's also helping is that there's already a strong homebrew scene for what I said before, that in a roundabout way, the OGL fiasco may have broken people out of certain habits. All the more reason to be optimistic about the state of things regarding Tabletop. Stay frosty.